this is a spin-off video, part 2 out of the weekly newsletters, more specifically about homework and kind of the theory behind why we have homework for language acquisition. And so I think a lot of times homework is kind of used as busy work or a checking for understanding of what they did during the classwork. But actually, if we look at the research, it shows that using homework as an assessment of what they learned during the time is ineffective because there's so many things that affect how kids do on their homework that aren't in your control. For example, if they have a tutor, if they have their friends, if they have their parent, all of these different things affect what you see on the homework. So actually, a lot of theorists say that you shouldn't grade homework. You should check to see if it was completed, but you shouldn't add it into your grade book because it's not an accurate reflection of what they understand. Because there's so many other things that could happen when you're not watching them. Just like if someone was sitting next to a friend and copied their whole paper down during the test, you would not count that test because you know that that's not what that child knows. So with homework, you don't know how much work that kid is having from their parent or their friend, and you also don't know how much they care about it. So sometimes I think they totally understood, but then their homework looks like rubbish because they wanted to play outside. It was a sunny day and they did it on the bus. So that's not to say that homework isn't important. It's just to clarify that homework should not be an assessment. Homework should not be an extension of what you do in the class. That being said, that is what homework should not be. That doesn't mean that homework is evil. There's a trend in America going on that we should never have homework. And actually, I agree with this trend, but I disagree with this trend for language learning purposes because repetition, repetition, repetition. We know that as language teachers, they need to practice the new words and practice the new grammar again and again and again. And that's why we review at the beginning of class the vocabulary. That's why we review the vocabulary at the end of the class again, 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 again. So when you have language homework or homework for Chinese or for ESOL, it really should be about those memorization tools and practice tools. That is limited to vocabulary and grammar. So really, I urge you that you really only need homework about vocabulary and grammar. For the higher classes, you might need a little bit of writing, a little bit of reading. That's appropriate too. Also, a good rule of thumb, before I go on to that. So with that vocabulary and grammar, that should be your structure. So that could be, I've seen that Catherine Tien has the homework on Quizlet, and the kids need to practice their vocabulary on Quizlet 20 minutes each day. Also, there's an app called Memrise. Memrise has their vocabulary lists already made, and it's made according to the psychology of how people remember things. There's also Chinesey, and that's helping your kids who are really struggling with looking at the Chinese characters and knowing how they go together. It puts all the Chinese characters with pictures. So that's even good for your kids who struggle with that, but also for your lower elementary. There's tons of games. Mind snacks. Sorry. And things like this. So there's tons of options, but pick a platform and stick to it. That way they can have that memorization without getting distracted about what they're supposed to do. It'll be more effective. Or with your grammar, then you have like, this is this week's grammar point, boom, and then they practice it in this way. So you have, write your grammar point for the day here, write your vocabulary for the week here, great, write 3 sentences using that each day. Something, it sounds really boring, but homework is boring anyways, so maybe it's not the coolest homework, but it's a system, and systems work because kids know how to do them. And you'll have to teach how to do the homework the first time you try to do it. So keep that in mind too. I think you guys already know that from the beginning of the year, but when you create a system, make sure they really understand it before you change the system again. Thing about homework, it's really important to know that Homework should be calculated upon what is grade appropriate and age appropriate. So a good rule of thumb is take the grade level and multiply it by 10. So for example, second grade, 20 minutes. But that means that they have 20 minutes of homework at home for everything. And you already know that their homeroom teacher, their classroom teacher, is giving them homework for um, reading and for spelling. So, really, 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 it sounds bad, it sounds harsh, but your homework should not take them more than 5 to 10 minutes every day. And if they do 5 to 10 minutes every day, brain science, psychology says that you will memorize better for short periods over an extended amount of time than for a long period for a short amount of time. So if you have that system down and you have that way of doing things down and they practice that vocabulary every day for 5 minutes, those 20 words every day for 5 minutes, that's going to have a better effect on how they are in your classroom than 20 minutes of writing or things like this. But really, please keep in mind it's not appropriate for our kids to have more than the developmentally appropriate amount of homework for their grade. So if they're in fourth grade, that means 40 minutes total. And I'm going to be honest, your elementary teacher is already taking up most, if not all, of that time. Fifth grade, 50 minutes. Sixth grade, 60 minutes. First grade, 10 minutes. That means your first graders should have like 5 words to practice every day. So I hope that's helpful. I hope that that helps you to understand a little bit more of how the brain works for child development as well, why we have homework, where it comes from, why in America they're even saying that homework is ineffective at all. But for language development, it really is important because you need to memorize short times, many times through systems. Great.